It was 4:57 a.m. when the alarm went off. For a moment, silence filled the small apartment in Chicago. Then came the groan, a deep, tired sound from a man who had lost more battles with himself than he cared to admit. Ethan Cole was 32, stuck in a loop that millions of people knew too well. He wasn't lazy. He had dreams, big ones. He wanted to start his own business, leave his dead-end job, and finally feel proud of his life. But every time he tried to act, something inside him whispered, "Not today!" That whisper always won. He'd hit snooze, scroll through his phone, tell himself he'd start tomorrow. But tomorrow had been showing up for years, and nothing ever changed. That morning felt no different. The bed was warm, the world still dark, and his body begged him to rest. Yet something stirred inside his mind, a faint, unfamiliar spark. The night before, he had stumbled upon a quote that hit him harder than any self-help video or podcast ever had. It was from Napoleon Hill. "Do not wait. The time will never be just right. Start where you stand." Those words kept echoing in his mind. Start where you stand. He sat up slowly, rubbed his face, and stared at the alarm clock like it was daring him to move. His body screamed, "Go back to sleep." But another voice, quieter, deeper, whispered back, "Move anyway." That was the first battle, and that morning, for the first time in years, Ethan wanted. He pushed the covers away, placed his feet on the cold floor, and stood up. It was only a small act, but as he stood there, heart pounding, he realized something powerful. Discipline wasn't about feeling ready. It was about moving even when you weren't. By 6 a.m., Ethan was jogging through the quiet streets. The air was crisp, his breath heavy, but his mind felt alive. For the first time, he wasn't chasing motivation. He was building something stronger. As he ran, he thought about how much of his life had been wasted waiting for the right moment. He'd waited for confidence before applying for that promotion. He'd waited for clarity before starting his business plan. He'd waited for energy before working out. But now he understood the truth. Motivation is a visitor. Discipline is a habit. Every time he pushed through resistance, he felt a strange sense of control, like he was taming a wild part of himself that had ruled him for too long. When he got home, his roommate Jake was still asleep on the couch, surrounded by energy drink cans and empty pizza boxes. Jake had dreams too, talked about them all the time. But he, like Ethan used to be, was waiting for inspiration. Ethan looked at him and smiled sadly. He realized something profound. The gap between who we are and who we want to be isn't filled by talent. It's filled by consistency. That morning changed everything. Not because of the jog, but because of what it represented. A new agreement between his mind and his body. From that day, Ethan decided to live by one rule. I move when I don't feel like it. It became his mantra. Whether it was sending emails for his side business, hitting the gym, or studying late after work, he would no longer negotiate with his excuses. At first, it was hard, brutally hard. There were mornings he almost quit, nights when his body felt like lead, and days when his mind whispered every reason to stop. But each time he moved through that resistance, he grew stronger. Napoleon Hill once wrote, "Every adversity brings with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit." Ethan began to see that discomfort was not his enemy, it was his teacher. The soreness, the fatigue, the frustration, all of it was shaping him into someone who no longer bowed to weakness. He wasn't waiting to feel motivated anymore. He was training his mind to obey. One evening, after a long day at work, he sat by his small desk, typing up plans for his business idea, a small online fitness coaching brand. His eyes were heavy, his back ached, and his body begged him to stop. But he whispered the words again, "Move anyway." That night, he worked until midnight. And when he finally shut off his laptop, he didn't feel tired. He felt alive. That's when he realized the real difference between average and extraordinary people wasn't luck, talent, or timing, it was self-mastery. Weeks turned into months. Ethan wasn't perfect. He had setbacks. But each time he fell, he rose faster. Each morning he faced that quiet war, his body craving comfort, his mind demanding control. And each time, he chose to act. He stopped searching for motivation and started building momentum. And that momentum began to spill into every part of his life, his health, his confidence, his purpose. By the end of that first year, he had built his small business into a growing online brand. His videos about discipline started attracting followers who resonated with his message. Don't wait to feel ready. Act now. People asked him, how did you stay motivated? He always smiled and said, I stopped depending on motivation. I started depending on mastery. And as he spoke those words, he remembered that cold Chicago morning, when everything had begun with a single act of defiance against comfort. That's when he understood the timeless truth Napoleon Hill had written nearly a century ago. The man who masters himself is greater than the man who conquers a city. End of part 1. The Awakening of Discipline. Coming next, part 2. The War Between Mind and Body, where Ethan discovers the true battlefield within, and learns how to win the fight between desire and discipline every single morning. Would you like me to continue with part 2, The War Between Mind and Body, 1000 words, in the same style next? Part 2, The War Between Mind and Body. Inspired by the teachings of Napoleon Hill, the alarm clock buzzed again, 4:57 a.m., the same sound that had once symbolized defeat. But this time, Ethan didn't hesitate. His eyes opened before the snooze button could whisper temptation. He sat up, feet hitting the cold floor, and for a brief second, that familiar voice inside him whispered, 5 more minutes won't hurt. But Ethan smiled. He had learned to recognize that voice, not as a command, but as a test. Not today, he said quietly. You don't lead me anymore. He stood, stretched, and felt the same tug-of-war that lived inside every person, the battle between the body that seeks comfort and the mind that seeks control. And he knew this truth. Every morning, the war begins again. When Ethan first started his journey toward discipline, he thought victory meant silence, that one day, the resistance would disappear. But over time, he discovered something different. The voice of laziness never truly vanishes. It only grows weaker each time you defeat it. First, every step out of bed felt heavy. Every early workout felt forced. Every moment of focus felt unnatural. But as he kept going, something remarkable happened. The more he pushed past that inner resistance, the quieter it became. The weight that once felt crushing now felt light. The voice that once screamed now whispered. And instead of fearing the struggle, Ethan began to expect it. He realized that resistance wasn't an enemy. It was a sign of growth. Just like a muscle that strengthens under pressure, his willpower was growing stronger with every act of defiance. One evening, after work, Ethan sat at his desk, tired and hungry. His computer screen glowed with half-finished plans for his business. His body wanted to rest, to scroll through social media, to escape. But his mind whispered, do the work. He stared at the cursor blinking on the screen, feeling that tug between ease and effort. He thought of a passage from Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich that had changed his perspective forever. Strength and growth come only through continuous effort and struggle. He took a deep breath and started typing. 10 minutes became 30. 30 became an hour. And by the time midnight rolled around, he had finished his first full business plan. It wasn't perfect, but it existed. And that made all the difference. Ethan leaned back and smiled. He realized something powerful. Every victory, no matter how small, was building his strength from the inside out. Each time he forced himself to act, he carved a stronger version of himself, a version that no longer needed to feel ready to move. Weeks later, a friend named Marcus dropped by. Marcus was struggling, too, stuck in the same loop Ethan had once lived in. Man, Marcus said, I see your videos online. You make it look so easy. I wish I had your motivation. Ethan laughed. You think I'm motivated every day? Marcus, I fight my body every morning. Motivation doesn't wake me up, discipline does. Marcus frowned. But doesn't it get easier? Ethan thought for a moment. No, not easier. But you get stronger. The mind grows when it wins against laziness. Each time you push past that voice that says not today, it loses power. Soon, what felt impossible starts to feel normal. You stop asking yourself if you feel like it. You just do it. Marcus leaned back, silent for a while. Then he nodded. So you're saying the battle never ends? Ethan smiled. Exactly. But that's the beauty of it. Each day you win, you build armor. Real confidence. The kind that doesn't come from talking, it's earned through action. That night, Ethan wrote in his journal. The war between my mind and body is a daily fight. Every time I move when it's hard, I win another piece of myself. He was beginning to understand a truth Napoleon Hill had spent a lifetime teaching, that success is not a matter of chance or luck, but the result of self-discipline, persistence, and control over one's own thoughts. The following weeks tested him harder than ever. The Chicago winter grew colder, his job became more demanding, and his body begged for rest. One morning, with snow falling outside his window, Ethan stared at his running shoes. His body whispered, "Stay home. Just this once." But his mind, calm, steady, unshaken, said, "It must be done." He laced up the shoes, stepped out into the freezing wind, and ran anyway. With each step, he could feel his lungs burn, his legs ache, his breath shorten, yet his mind only grew louder. This is where strength is built. This is how greatness is made. By the time he returned home, drenched in sweat and snow, he wasn't just proud, he was free. Because he finally understood that freedom is not the absence of struggle, it's the ability to act in spite of it. From that day forward, Ethan lived by a new rule. The one who commands his body is free from weakness. He no longer asked, "Do I feel like it?" He asked, "What must be done?" And that single shift changed everything. He stopped being a prisoner of his feelings. He stopped chasing fleeting energy or ideal conditions. He no longer needed excitement to move. He moved because his purpose demanded it. He began to trust himself completely, because he knew that no matter how tired, afraid, or uncertain he felt, he would always act. That kind of trust is rare. It's the quiet confidence that comes only from keeping promises to yourself. And as Ethan's discipline grew, so did his results. His business started attracting clients. His mornings became sacred. His actions, once inconsistent, became automatic. He had built what Napoleon Hill called a definite chief aim, a purpose so strong that no feeling could override it. Every morning, the war still began. But Ethan was no longer the scared man who used to lose it. Now, he welcomed it. Because he understood that the war between mind and body is not a curse, it's a classroom. And each battle won brings you closer to mastery. That's how greatness is built, not in bursts of motivation, but in the quiet defiance of comfort, one decision at a time. End of Part 2. The War Between Mind and Body. Coming next, Part 3. Discipline over Desire. Where Ethan learns that passion can fade, but purpose endures, and that true success comes not from desire, but from disciplined devotion to a dream. Would you like me to write Part 3? Discipline over Desire. 1,000 words, next in the same Napoleon Hill story style? Part 3. Discipline over Desire. Inspired by the teachings of Napoleon Hill, the rain poured against Ethan's window like 1,000 restless thoughts. He sat at his small wooden desk, staring at the blank screen, the clock ticking past midnight. His eyes were heavy, his mind dull, and for the first time in months, he felt empty. The excitement that once fueled him, gone. The fire that used to wake him before dawn, gone. He whispered to himself, "Where did my motivation go?" The truth hit him like a slow echo in the quiet room. Desire had left him. That was the night Ethan learned the most powerful lesson of his life. Success isn't built on desire, it's built on discipline. A few months earlier, everything had felt electric. Every new goal gave him energy. Every small win filled him with pride. But as time went on, the excitement faded. The results weren't coming fast enough. The work felt repetitive. The dream that once burned so brightly now felt far away, almost unreachable. One evening, he met with his mentor, Mr. Dalton, an old entrepreneur who had built his fortune from scratch and whose calm confidence reminded Ethan of the timeless lessons from Napoleon Hill. Ethan confessed, "I think I'm losing my drive. I don't feel inspired anymore." Mr. Dalton smiled knowingly. "That's because you've been running on desire, not discipline." Ethan frowned. "Aren't they the same thing?" "Not even close," Mr. Dalton said. "Desire will get you started. Discipline will keep you going. Desire fades when it gets hard. Discipline grows stronger the longer you endure. Desire burns bright, but discipline burns forever." Those words stuck in Ethan's mind like a spark that refused to die. In the days that followed, he started observing his own patterns. The truth was undeniable. Whenever the excitement was gone, he slowed down. Whenever progress wasn't visible, he questioned himself. He began to realize that he had tied his effort to his emotions. And emotions, like the weather, changed every day. If his mood was good, he worked hard. If he felt low, he made excuses. He remembered something Napoleon Hill once wrote. One of the most common causes of failure is the habit of quitting when one is overtaken by temporary defeat. That sentence cut deep. Ethan realized he was quitting in small ways, not fully, but subtly. Skipping the early mornings. Postponing the hard tasks. Waiting to feel ready. That's when he made a promise to himself. From now on, I move whether I feel like it or not. The first week was brutal. He woke up tired, his body heavy, his thoughts noisy. There was no motivation, no excitement, no spark. Only resistance. But each time that inner voice said, "You can rest today," Ethan answered with action. He sat at his desk when he didn't want to. He trained at the gym when his muscles begged for rest. He made the phone calls when anxiety whispered to delay. Each action felt small, almost meaningless. But with every decision, something inside him changed. He started trusting himself again. Every promise kept became a quiet victory. Every disciplined act built invisible strength. He was building something far more powerful than motivation, self-respect. Weeks passed, and Ethan noticed something strange. He no longer needed the right mood to begin. The act of showing up became automatic. Like breathing. He realized that discipline is the bridge between intention and reality. When he was tired, he worked anyway. When he was bored, he kept going. When results were invisible, he trusted the process. It wasn't easy, but it was real. He wrote in his journal. Discipline outlasts every emotion. It doesn't care how I feel. It only cares what I do. One morning, while jogging through the park, Ethan passed a man sitting on a bench, scrolling endlessly on his phone. The man looked up and said, "I wish I had your motivation." Ethan smiled. "You don't need my motivation," he said. "You need my habits." The man looked confused. Ethan continued, "Motivation comes and goes. It's like the weather, sometimes sunny, sometimes stormy. But habits? They're the climate. They don't change just because of a bad day." The man chuckled, but Ethan meant every word. He had finally understood that consistency matters more than passion. That greatness isn't about doing something once with intensity. It's about doing it every day, even when it feels dull. There came a point when Ethan's business plateaued. Weeks went by without new clients. The numbers weren't growing. His efforts seemed invisible, and for the first time in a long while, doubt returned. "What's the point?" the voice whispered. "You're not seeing progress." But Ethan had learned the hidden law of success. Real progress is silent. He remembered Mr. Dalton's words. Keep going long enough for the moment when everything changes. So he did. He worked quietly. He refined his system. He kept moving, one step at a time. And then, one morning, out of nowhere, the email arrived. A major client wanted to partner with him. Ethan smiled, not in surprise, but in understanding. This was what discipline does. It rewards those who keep moving long after others have stopped. That night, he sat by his window, watching the city lights flicker below. He whispered to himself, "Desire starts the fire, but discipline keeps it burning." He thought of all the times he had almost quit, the times he had felt tired, uninspired, invisible, and he realized that every difficult moment had been part of the training. Discipline had become his anchor, unshaken by emotion, untouched by doubt. Weeks later, Ethan met Mr. Dalton again. "Still chasing the dream?" the old man asked. Ethan smiled. "Not chasing anymore, sir. Building." Dalton nodded approvingly. "Good. Remember, the world belongs to the disciplined. While others wait to feel ready, they move. While others chase motivation, they build habits. Discipline doesn't ask how you feel, it asks what needs to be done." Ethan nodded. He had finally understood. Success wasn't about waiting for inspiration to strike. It was about showing up when no one's watching, doing the work when the results are invisible, and trusting that every disciplined act is shaping your destiny. He walked home that night with a quiet peace inside him. Because now he knew, desire may fade, but discipline builds empires. And for the first time in his life, he wasn't relying on passion. He was relying on power. The power of consistency. The power of self-respect. The power of discipline. As the city slept, and the rain began to fall again, Ethan smiled and whispered the words that would define the rest of his life. "Move because it's necessary. Move because your future depends on it. End of part 3. Discipline over desire. Coming next, part 4. The art of starting, where Ethan learns that waiting for the perfect time is the greatest illusion of all, and that courage, not readiness, is what creates destiny. Would you like me to continue with part 4? The art of starting. 1,000 words, next, in the same Napoleon Hill style storytelling format? Title: The Art of Starting, Part 4, inspired by Napoleon Hill, from the series Discipline over Motivation. Hook: most people spend their lives standing at the edge of their dreams, waiting for the perfect moment to begin. But that moment never comes. The truth, as Napoleon Hill often said, is this: don't wait. The time will never be just right. The ones who win in life aren't the ones who wait. They're the ones who start, scared and unready, but willing. Story: Ethan stood by his window, staring out at the quiet street below. The city was just waking up, joggers passing by, cars humming, and the faint smell of coffee in the air. His journal lay open on his desk, filled with ideas, goals, and deadlines, all written months ago, none acted upon. He had a dream, to build his own fitness brand. But every day, he told himself the same story. Not yet. I need more time. I need to learn a little more. I'll start when I'm ready. Weeks turned into months. His notebooks filled up, but his progress didn't point. One morning, while scrolling through a podcast, he stumbled across an old recording of Napoleon Hill's teachings. The voice was steady, wise, and direct. The world has the habit of making room for the man whose words and actions show that he knows where he is going. Ethan paused the recording. Something about that line struck him. It wasn't about being ready, it was about moving. That night, he decided to take one small step. Not a perfect one, not a big one, just a start. He designed his first workout post, filmed it with his phone, and uploaded it. His hands shook as he hit publish. No fancy editing, no followers, no guarantee. But it was a beginning. The illusion of readiness. Ethan learned quickly that waiting for readiness is a trap. The human mind is clever. It disguises fear as preparation. It whispers, "You're being smart by waiting. You're not ready yet." But what it's really saying is, "I'm scared to fail." Napoleon Hill taught that fear is the root of all hesitation. Fear of criticism, fear of poverty, fear of failure, all of them keep people standing still. And the cure for fear is always action. Ethan started to realize that confidence isn't something you wait for, it's something you build. Each time he posted, each time he learned, he grew a little bolder. The fear didn't disappear, but his courage grew stronger than it. One night, when doubt crept in, he wrote this in his journal. "I may not be ready, but I am willing." That became his new mantra. Action creates clarity. At first, his efforts seemed small and clumsy. His videos had poor lighting. His captions were awkward. He questioned himself constantly. But something interesting happened. Clarity started to come. Not before he acted, but after. He began to understand what worked and what didn't. He learned how to speak to his audience. He saw what people resonated with. And with every mistake, he gained more insight than all the months he spent planning. Napoleon Hill once said, "Knowledge becomes power only when it is organized into definite plans and expressed through definite action." Ethan smiled when he read that quote. It described his life perfectly. He had knowledge all along, he just hadn't used it. It wasn't thinking that brought him progress. It was doing. The fear before the leap. There was a time when Ethan almost gave up. He looked at his numbers, barely a handful of followers, no engagement, no sales. The voice in his head said, "See? You weren't ready. You should have waited longer." That night, he rewatched an interview with Napoleon Hill. Hill said something that burned into his memory. "Every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit." That line hit him hard. Maybe this slow start wasn't failure. Maybe it was teaching him patience, humility, and persistence. He realized something else. He wasn't just building a business. He was building himself. Every act of courage, every post, every uncomfortable moment was shaping his character. And in that moment, the pain of slow progress turned into fuel. Momentum changes everything. The next morning, Ethan got up earlier than usual. He made a schedule, planned his week, and promised himself that he would show up, no matter what. At first, discipline felt heavy. But soon, it became natural. The same way a runner finds rhythm after the first mile, he found rhythm in action. He started small, but the momentum began to grow. His content improved. His audience expanded. And one day, a major fitness page shared his post. Overnight, he gained thousands of new followers. It wasn't luck, it was the result of hundreds of small steps taken when no one was watching. Hill's words echoed in his mind. Start where you stand, and work whatever tools you may have at your command, and better tools will be found as you go along. That was exactly what happened. The act of starting had created opportunities that never existed before. Faith and movement. Months later, Ethan stood in front of his first pop-up fitness event. A crowd gathered around his booth, wearing his brand's shirts. His business had grown, but more importantly, so had he. He realized the greatest gift of starting wasn't success, but faith. Faith in himself. Faith that he could act without guarantees. Faith that courage matters more than certainty. He wrote in his journal that night. Waiting gave me comfort. Starting gave me strength. He finally understood Napoleon Hill's greatest truth, that thought alone doesn't change your life. Action guided by belief does. Lesson: the perfect time will never come. The stars will never align. Waiting only delays your destiny. You do not need to be ready, you only need to be willing. When you move, even in uncertainty, the universe begins to move with you. Opportunities, people, and ideas appear, but only for those already in motion. So start now. With what you have. Where you are. As Hill said, do not wait, the time will never be just right. Start where you stand. Call to action: if this story inspired you, share it with someone who's been waiting for the right time. Leave a comment, subscribe for the next part, and remember, the moment you start, your future starts too. Would you like me to continue with part 5? The Pain of Progress. In the same Napoleon Hill story style, 1,000 words. Title: The Pain of Progress, Part 5, inspired by Napoleon Hill, from the series Discipline Over Motivation. Hook: every person who ever achieved greatness had to walk through pain, not the pain that destroys, but the pain that builds. Napoleon Hill often said, every adversity carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. The truth is, success never comes wrapped in comfort. It arrives disguised as struggle, testing whether you're strong enough to deserve it. Story: the gym was empty except for one man. The air was heavy with the smell of iron and effort. Marcus dropped to the floor after finishing another grueling set. Sweat dripped from his face, his muscles screamed for rest, and his lungs burned. He wanted to quit, but a quiet voice in his mind said, one more rep. That voice wasn't motivation. It was discipline. Marcus had been chasing his dream of becoming a professional athlete for years. When he started, he was full of fire, energy, excitement, and the belief that he was destined to win. But now, months later, the excitement had faded. The results were slow. The routine had become lonely. And pain had become his daily companion. One night, as he sat on the locker room bench, he remembered a line from Napoleon Hill's book Think and Grow Rich. Strength and growth come only through continuous effort and struggle. Marcus realized something profound. The struggle he hated was the very thing that was making him stronger. The silent teacher. Pain doesn't speak loudly. It doesn't cheer you on or tell you it's worth it. It just sits quietly, testing you. And most people run from it. But Marcus began to see pain differently. He treated it as a teacher. Every sore muscle, every failed attempt, every long night of doubt was showing him something about himself, his limits, his patience, his courage. The first lesson pain taught him was humility. He wasn't as strong as he thought. He wasn't as fast as he hoped. But that realization didn't break him, it built him. It made him work smarter, think deeper, and fight harder. Hill once said, when defeat comes, accept it as a signal that your plans are not sound, rebuild those plans, and set sail once more toward your coveted goal. That line became Marcus's mantra. Each failure wasn't the end. It was feedback, a sign to adjust and keep moving. The breaking point. Every journey has a breaking point. That dark moment where giving up feels easier than continuing. For Marcus, that moment came one cold winter morning. He woke up sore and exhausted. His legs ached from the day before. The thought of another workout made him sick. He looked in the mirror and said to himself, "Maybe this isn't for me." But then he remembered his father's words. "The easy road gives comfort today, but regret tomorrow." He tied his shoes and drove to the gym anyway. Every step felt like dragging a boulder. Every rep felt impossible. But he pushed through, telling himself, "Pain is not the signal to stop. It's the signal that I'm growing." When he finished, something shifted inside him. It wasn't pride or excitement, it was power. He had faced his worst day and still kept his promise to himself. That victory changed everything. The truth about pain. Marcus learned that pain doesn't always mean something's wrong. Sometimes it means something's working. Growth hurts. It stretches you, pulls you, and breaks you open before it builds you stronger. Napoleon Hill believed that adversity is not the enemy, it's the refining fire that shapes character. He wrote, "Every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit." Marcus started writing that quote on a sticky note and placing it on his bathroom mirror. Every morning, he'd read it before he trained. Each time he faced discomfort, he'd whisper, "There's a seed in this. Find it." Soon, he realized that pain had gifts hidden inside it: patience, because results take time; persistence, because success requires endurance; perspective, because struggle reveals what truly matters. These lessons weren't learned from success. They were learned from the grind. The transformation. 6 months passed. The same workouts that once broke him now felt manageable. The pain that used to scare him had become familiar, even welcome. He began to understand that comfort never built champions. Pain did. He saw his friends who once started training with him slowly fade away. They wanted results without resistance. They quit when things got hard. But Marcus kept going. Not because he loved pain, but because he respected it. Hill said, "Most great people have attained their greatest success just one step beyond their greatest failure." Marcus carried that line in his heart. He didn't realize it then, but his perseverance through pain was transforming him into someone unstoppable. A moment of realization. One day, Marcus was invited to compete in a regional competition. Standing backstage, he thought about all the nights he almost quit, all the mornings he forced himself to move through exhaustion, and all the moments he felt alone. That's when it hit him. Every ounce of pain had been necessary. Without it, he wouldn't have earned this moment. He didn't win first place that day. But he won something far greater: belief in himself. He understood what Napoleon Hill truly meant when he said, "Victory is always possible for the person who refuses to stop fighting." Marcus had become that person. Lesson: pain is not punishment. It's preparation. It's the price you pay for growth. Every time you push through it, you are proving that your goals matter more than your comfort. The road to greatness will hurt. You'll doubt yourself. You'll fail. You'll want to quit. But if you stay the course, you'll discover that the pain you feared was never there to destroy you. It was there to forge you. Progress always begins at the edge of discomfort. And as Napoleon Hill taught, within every setback lies the seed of a comeback. So don't run from pain, respect it. It's your proof that you're moving forward. Call to action: if this story moved you, share it with someone who's ready to give up. Remind them that the pain they feel is not the end, it's the beginning of transformation. Subscribe for part 6. Focus until it hurts, where we'll uncover how the power of deep focus can turn discipline into destiny. Would you like me to now continue with part 6? Focus until it hurts. In the same Napoleon Hill-inspired story style, 1,000 words. Title: Focus Until It Hurts, Part 6, inspired by Napoleon Hill, final chapter of Discipline Over Motivation. Look, Napoleon Hill once said, "The successful man is the one who makes up his mind and sticks to it." Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they lose focus. Distraction is the silent thief of dreams. It doesn't destroy you overnight. It erodes your purpose piece by piece until your goals become distant memories. This is the story of a man who learned the hardest lesson of all, that focus is not just attention, it's power. Story: Ethan was a young entrepreneur with a fire in his heart. He had a vision: to build a company that would change his industry. In the beginning, he was unstoppable. He woke early, worked late, and felt alive with purpose. But over time, life began to get loud. Emails, social media, constant notifications, the noise was endless. What started as quick 5-minute breaks turned into hours lost scrolling, watching, and reacting. He told himself he was still working hard, but deep down, he knew he wasn't working smart. His progress slowed. His energy scattered. His vision blurred. One evening, sitting in his quiet office after everyone had gone home, Ethan opened Think and Grow Rich. He stopped at a line that hit him like lightning. Concentration of effort is the key to all personal achievement. He stared at that sentence for a long time. It felt like Hill was speaking directly to him across generations. The turning point that night, Ethan made a promise to himself. He would do what most people couldn't. He would master focus. He deleted every distraction from his phone. He started each day with silence, journaling his goals by hand. No music. No noise. Just purpose. At first, it was torture. His mind raced. His hands twitched to check messages. The silence felt unbearable. But he pushed through. He remembered Hill's principle. Control your mind and you may control your destiny. Every time he resisted the urge to drift, his focus grew stronger. It wasn't easy, focus hurt. It burned like lifting mental weights. But just like muscles, the mind grew tougher with every repetition. Weeks turned into months, and Ethan noticed something changing. His thoughts became clearer. His decisions became sharper, and his results began to multiply. The science of stillness. One morning, while reviewing his company plans, Ethan realized how much time he used to waste. He had been chasing too many ideas, new ventures, side projects, endless what-ifs. He remembered another Hill lesson. A quitter never wins and a winner never quits. He understood it differently now. It wasn't just about giving up on dreams, it was about quitting your focus. Each time he divided his attention, he was quitting on his purpose. So, he simplified. One goal. One mission. One clear direction. He decided to pour all his energy into creating a single product that could change everything. His team thought he was crazy to let go of other opportunities. But Ethan knew, divided attention is divided results. Each day, he gave that project his undivided focus. No multitasking. No shortcuts. Just deep, deliberate effort. And slowly, the magic began to happen. The discipline of focus. Focus is not about doing more. It's about doing less, better. Napoleon Hill taught that successful people develop the ability to keep their minds fixed on a definite purpose. Ethan embodied that. He began to live by a new rule. Until this task is complete, nothing else exists. He built routines that protected his focus like sacred ground. His mornings were for deep work. His afternoons were for meetings. His evenings were for reflection. No mixing. No drifting. At first, it felt restrictive, like locking himself in a cage. But soon, that cage became freedom. Because with focus, he stopped wasting energy on things that didn't matter. Every project moved faster. Every problem became easier. Every challenge became a test of his willpower, not his talent. He realized that focus wasn't just a skill, it was an act of self-respect. The power of elimination. Ethan learned that true focus requires saying no more often than yes. He stopped attending every meeting. He stopped answering every call. He stopped giving energy to things that didn't serve his purpose. At first, people didn't understand. Some even criticized him. But he stayed steady, because he remembered Napoleon Hill's words. Tell the world what you intend to do, but first show it. He didn't talk about his goals anymore. He worked on them in silence. And when his results began to speak for themselves, everyone finally understood. Focus had become his superpower. The payoff. After a year of laser concentration, Ethan's project launched. What once took him months to accomplish now took weeks. The business flourished. Investors noticed. The product went viral. But more than the success, Ethan had gained something far more valuable: mastery over his mind. He finally understood what Hill meant by definiteness of purpose. It wasn't just about setting a goal, it was about giving it your entire attention until it became reality. Focus wasn't glamorous. It was quiet, often lonely, and demanding. But it was also the foundation of greatness. The final lesson. Looking back, Ethan realized that the journey had never been about building a company. It was about building himself. He had learned that discipline begins with movement, grows through struggle, and is perfected through focus. Because in the end, success doesn't come to the most motivated. It comes to those who stay locked on their mission long after the excitement is gone. Napoleon Hill was right all along. The person who does more than he is paid for will soon be paid for more than he does. Ethan had done more, not in quantity, but in quality. And the world rewarded him for it. Moral of the story: focus is the final form of discipline. It's the art of ignoring everything that doesn't serve your dream. It's painful, it's lonely, but it's also liberating. The one who can hold his vision steady, even when life pulls him in 100 directions, will always rise above. When you learn to control your attention, you control your destiny. Call to action: if Ethan's story inspired you, share it with someone who needs to hear this truth. That success isn't about doing more, it's about focusing deeper. Backhand index pointing right. Subscribe for more stories inspired by Napoleon Hill's timeless wisdom. Speech balloon. Comment what lesson hit you hardest, and how you'll apply it today. Repeat button. Share this story with someone who's easily distracted. Remind them that focus is freedom. Because in the end, the difference between those who wish and those who achieve is simple. One stayed focused long enough to finish the race.